Well, hello everyone. I didn't advertise this, so I don't expect a whole lot of viewers on this. This is more to save me some time. I've been moving over the past couple of weeks, and because of that, my studio's been taken down. I've just now got my computer back up and back online, and this live event will help me to catch you up and get a video up because I haven't had one for a while. Anyhow, I wanted to talk about the fact that we are in the end times, and I wanted to give you three indicators that you can look at to verify that. This is not a Bible study. I'm not going to go through a whole lot of verses. I'll give you the pointers so you can go look in the right direction. So the first thing I want to do is tell you, because we are in the end times, you need to really worry about your salvation. Christ came down here to save everyone. And if you're sitting on the fence, you're going to have to make a decision real quick. Now, we've been told to watch for the rapture forever. Back in Jesus' time, they were looking for it. In fact, the Thessalonians thought that they had missed it, and Paul had to write them a second letter and tell them, don't worry about it. You didn't miss it. Times are just tough. And people are using that same excuse today. We're not in the end times because times are just tough. Well, I'm going to give you three signs that kind of point in the other direction. They can be deniers for as long as they want, but eventually we're all going to be gone, Christians, and they're going to be left to fend for themselves. And it's going to be a little bit harder. Okay, so what I want to do first is I'm going to pull up my list here. Normally I'd have a script to follow, but I don't have that with my studio down. Okay, the first major sign is the fig tree. In Matthew 24:32, we're told, learn the parable of the fig tree. When its branch is yet tender and putteth forth leaves, you know that summer is nigh. Okay, basically, it's a very young plant. And Israel is a relatively young nation. Over the past 2,000 years, until recently, we didn't have Israel. In 1947, the UN recognized them. Okay. In 1948, they actually finished their paperwork and actually became a state. But the UN recognized them as a state in 1947. So that's the date that I'm going to use. We're also told, so likewise, you should see all these things, that it is near, even at the doors. Verily I say to you, a generation shall not pass until these things are fulfilled. That's in verse 34. So a generation. You can go back to Psalm 90:10. Our days may be 70 years or 80 years. If your strength endures, yet the best of them are but trouble and sorrow, for they quickly pass and then they fly away. So we've got 70 and 80 years as the time frame. So if we go back to 1947, add 70 years, we're looking at 2017. Remember that date. Now, if you want to go ahead and use the other date of 1948, that puts you in 2018. But I'm trying to give you a bracketed date range to look at. So 2017 is the beginning date. If you want to go and look at the 80-year adjustment, that puts you at 2027 and 2028. So 2017 to 2028. That's your maximum range for this fig tree parable, for the generation to see the return. Okay? So that's sign number one. Sign number two, we have the Revelation 12 sign. Now, the Revelation 12 sign is an astrological sign. And God, when he wants to tell time, he uses the stars, the constellations, the sun and the moon, because they didn't have Rolex watches, Timex watches. They didn't have any of that back then. There was no way for them to tell time other than looking at the seasons. The Jewish calendar is based on the moon, where ours is based on the sun. So we're going to do some different calculations here, but I want you to follow along. Revelation 12 sign. And there appeared a great wonder in heaven, and this is literal, a woman clothed with the sun. So that tells us that the sun is in the female constellation. Out of the 12 constellations that are used, and we're not talking astrology, out of the 12 constellations that are used, there's only one. And the modern name is Virgo, Athusda or something. I forget the Hebrew name, but it goes by a different name for them. But the bottom line is Virgo is the only female constellation. You've got Leo the lion next to it, and we're going to get to that in a second. And Leo the lion is for the tribe of Judah, the Lion of Judah, okay? So they definitely correlation. So when the sun comes up in Virgo, we're in basically the 7th month. We know that. So that puts us September timeframe, okay? This event happened in 2017 in September that I'm talking about. So we're going to look at this. Great wonder in heaven, a woman clothed with the sun and the moon under her feet, and it would have been a crescent moon, and upon her head a crown with 12 stars. Now, above her would have been Leo. Up over here, just a little angle, was Leo. Leo only has 9 stars. So what are we going to do? This doesn't match up. But during that time frame, you had 3 planets, Mercury, Venus, and Mars, were lined up in Leo, your 12 stars. Okay? So we have the pattern right there in 2017, but we're not done. And she was being with child, cried, travailing in birth, and pain to be delivered. 12 stars, the 9 plus Leo and the 3 planets, that's the top part. Okay, during this particular time, Jupiter was in Virgo. And because of the way the orbit was, Jupiter was in retrograde, and it stayed in Virgo for 9 months. And at the end of the Feast of Trumpets, on the 23rd, the Feast of Trumpets is a 2-day event. On the 23rd of September, 2017, Jupiter left. Okay, you need to Google this, just Revelation 12 sign, you can find that. There's actually maps and star pictures and things like that you can pull up that shows you what it looks like. So this is your second sign. And this is a starting point, and it's in the Bible. The fig tree's in the Bible, the generational part's in the Bible. This Revelation 12 sign is in the Bible. They're talking about the time that we're in now. We're in the end times. Okay. I want to talk a little bit about the final event. I don't know if anybody's watching. I don't expect to see anybody because I didn't advertise this. If you're here watching, thank you. And if not, this will be posted for everyone else to see later on. We're also told in Matthew 24:15, "When you therefore see the abomination of desolation spoken of by Daniel the prophet, standing in the holy place, whoever readeth this, let them understand." Okay, the abomination of desolation is the Antichrist standing in the temple. And if you look in Daniel, you'll find that he will stop the sacrifices, walk right in and say, "You don't need to do this anymore. I'm God, I'm Christ." Okay, that's the abomination of desolation. And that's midway through the 7-year period that many are calling the tribulation time frame, and more accurately would be the 70th day of Daniel. That's a different study. There were 70 days that God put on Israel to make up for them not having a year off. They're supposed to have a Shemitah year, a relaxing year, and they didn't take any of that. So he claimed all that all at once. So there's 70 years. The 69th year ended when Jesus came and was crucified. And when he basically ended that 70th day, we went into what would be called now a Gentile or a church age, and we've been in it up until these signs took place. Okay, and now we're switching back to the Hebrew focus, the Israeli focus, and that's why these signs are important. Okay, so we're looking at abomination of desolation at the midpoint in the temple. That's significant. There has to be a temple. Okay, in Jerusalem right now, there's an organization called the Temple Institute. You can find them online, templeinstitute.org. They've been raising money and building things. They've basically built everything that goes in the temple. They've got the table of showbread, the incense table, the place where they're going to do the sacrifices. They have the giant golden menorah that's in there, made out of solid gold. They've got the tapestries. They have everything that they need to go in the temple. Not sure about the Ark of the Covenant yet. That's such a major article that they probably wouldn't release information on it. Too many people would want to get their hands on it. If you watched the Indiana Jones movie, you will understand why. Anyhow, they are ready to go. They even have the plans for the temple. And there's another option that they've got, that if they want to be up and running, they can be up and offering sacrifices in just 2 days. Because if you remember, the Israelis, when they were in the desert for 40 years, they had a portable temple. God would lift the pillar of fire or smoke or whatever, and they would have to pack up and move to the next location. They had a portable tent that they carried around with them. Okay, so they could set that up anytime they're given permission. Okay, there's some other snags that we got to cover here. One, they need priests. Okay, well, they've been training priests. They've got them all selected. They even have a high priest, and they've been doing practice sacrifices. So they're ready to go. So that's taken care of. The other problem is, okay, they have to be sanctified. Numbers 12 talks about sanctifying the priests in the temple with the ashes of a red heifer. Well, until recently, they haven't had a red heifer. For basically 2,000 years, they haven't had one. 2 years ago, 2 were born, and they've been being inspected. The Bible originally said that they had to be viable for 3.5 years, but they've been looking at them over this period of time, and they changed roughly about that time. So they've shortened it to 2 years. So it's been 2 years since the 2 red heifers were born. One recently was disqualified. The final one had to get the last inspection at the end of August 20th or 29th. We haven't heard anything. They've been giving us updates on a regular basis in dead silence. There's no reason for the silence unless they're shielding the fact that it did pass and that they're ready. There are worldwide organizations that will complain that they're going back to sacrifices, PETA being one of them. They may want to keep that from them for the short period. But also, it means there's nothing left but a location to have the temple. Now, we have the southern Arab Muslim countries coming together and signing peace accords. They're going to be here, they've already agreed upon it, but they're going to be here in the United States signing their peace accord on the 15th. And a bunch of other countries are lining up, wanting to be part of that. The only ones that are not part of it are Iran, otherwise known as Persia, and you can use those names interchangeably. You've got Syria and Turkey, and of course Russia's helping fund all this because they want to be able to control the money flow in and out of this area. Lebanon would really like to be at peace with Israel, but Hezbollah, the Iranian bully organization, moved in there in their civil war and basically said, we're here, you can't kick us out, and we're going to do what we want to do. And by the way, they're the ones that had their ammonium nitrate explode in Beirut, wiping out the port. So they're not well liked in Lebanon. They were burning Iranian flags. Okay, so if we could get Hezbollah out of there, Lebanon would be part of this peace treaty. Okay, we're told that there's going to be a war from the north. Gog-Magog war. Gog is just a name for prince. There's actually two of them. There's going to be one now. God's going to slap them down. They're going to go into hiding for a little while and come back at the end of the millennium and try again. And God's going to deal with them. It's crazy how people think that just because God does it once, he's not going to come back and stop you again. If you're wrong, you're wrong, okay? But they're going to try to attack Israel from the north. They've been stockpiling arms and everything up there for a long time. Israel's been going up there and bombing certain areas. But it's like our drug deals in the United States. For every truckload or shipload that they catch, 10 get by because you can't stop it. It's still in the streets. So the same thing's going on with all this war machine. Now it says that God's going to hook them like a fish. He's going to pull them down. They're not completely sure they want to do this, but he's going to pull them down. And I'm not exactly sure what the motivation is. And it's quite possible that this war is going to happen potentially this month because there's a lot of turmoil going on. There seems to be a lot more, things moving around that really weren't moving around before. So that could happen anytime. And when it does, God's going to slap them down. They're going to go into their hidey holes, and the rest of the Arab Muslim nations are going to finish this treaty, and they're going to start dealing with the temple on the Temple Mount. When this war happens, there's supposed to be a major earthquake. It might knock out the Dome of the Rock. It might knock out the UNESCO Mosque. It might knock out both. We don't know. So that might be a sign from God that, you have to let Israel up there to do what they want to do. We'll see what happens. God's in charge of all this. Whenever a war breaks out with Israel, God's in charge. Nothing ever comes as a surprise. And he stays in complete control the whole time. Now, once they get the temple up there, you are definitely in the 7-year time frame. Now, I think we're in it right now, and things are just starting to ramp up. But by the time you realize that, we're going to be gone. The rapture is supposed to happen before the Antichrist comes on the scene, because we would recognize him, call him out, and he wouldn't be able to do the things he wants to do. We'd also pray him out of business too. We have the power of God that we can pray. We're going to go to heaven, and we're going to be praying for the souls that are still down here, because God's not finished. If God was finished with man, he'd just wipe out what's here and bring the new city of Jerusalem down, but he's not. He's going to be dealing with the seals and the trumpets and all the stuff that we have in Revelations. We have the 144,000, which may be an exact number, may just be a representation, because it's 12,000 from each tribe, and they may be in Jerusalem, they may be around the world. So all these things are coming down. One last thing I want to deal with here is, why would God let them build the temple? As a Christian, we know it's not necessary. Well, most of the Jews in the world are Jews by DNA only. They're not practicing. Their father was a Jew, their grandfather was, etc., etc. And they're Jewish, and they may or may not be proud of it, but they know it. But they don't go to temple. They don't do any of the sacrifices. They don't even eat kosher, most of them. The temple will unify them. And that's important, because God wants to focus these last few moments on them. So that's pretty much all I have to say for now. If I don't get my studio up in the next week, I'll probably do another live broadcast. Next time I may advertise it. I hope you got something out of this. Let me take a look. I still am at an odd time of the day. This is going to go live in just a little bit, so you can leave your comments up here, and I will try to get back at them. I will try to go back to my normal videoing probably in a month or two. That assuming we're still here. So, God bless. You have a great week, and keep looking up, because we are in the end times.